Hey,
So
Claudia. I just lost you for a second.
that's okay. So today we have Katie Truax, who I know from my therapy days. But what most people don't know about you is that you also do design work and that you were once upon a time an art student. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, as Claudia said, I am, like she is, a licensed therapist. I practice now in the state of Florida, but she and I met in Georgia 2010, I
10?
think, Claudia? Yeah,
Yeah.
long time ago. So, yes, but I also went to school for interior design prior to going to school for psychology. And so after doing clinical practice for about 10 years, I am kind of returning to my design roots, which historically I've just really been expressed through my own spaces, whether it's my house or my offices. Over the years, I've always done my own design of that and kind of design both on a budget, but also with the idea of making me feel good in my home, my family feel good in our home, and also, in the therapy spaces, clients feel good when they come in and clinicians feel good to be there working. And that's been really fun. And now that I'm down here living at the beach, I need a new canvas. So I put together a little small business called Bloom Intuitive Interior Redesign. And so the goal of that is not to necessarily do these huge interior design projects, which a lot of designers down here do with new construction, where you're picking all the finishes and upholstering furniture and having custom sewn curtains and the whole 9 yards, but rather to go into either a new space or an existing space and help the space owner or inhabitant kind of rework that space so that it appeals more to all of their senses and serves them in the way that they need it to, whether they need to be lifted up or calmed down or centered, or they just want it to feel more personal for them, or maybe they just don't really have a design eye and something's off here with my space. I don't know what it is, but I don't love it. So what I do is I go into spaces like that and I help them rework things. And often that looks like bringing in pieces from other areas of the house, or pieces that are family heirlooms, or things that have sentimental value for the person from their past, or pieces that may be new but may be centered around a favorite piece of artwork or a favorite place that they've traveled to, or a favorite person from history, and kind of creating a space around that really speaks to their soul. So they're likely to feel their best in their space.
Awesome. So I invited you here today because I know you're also a mom, and I really wanted to pick your brain about designing a space as a mom, as a parent, that works for your kid, works for you. How do you create that peaceful space, or that space that kind of speaks to you when you have, kids running around with their own things? And, maybe even a little bit about designing a space for your child that also, speaks to them. So I know that's a loaded question. So what are your so what are your ideas? I guess let's start with the parents out there. How do you create a space for you that works when you have a family?
You can be selfish. And I say that a little bit jokingly, but in all seriousness, I think that that's true. And, I would say that too, just purely with my therapist hat on as well. But I believe that in order to be the best parents we can be, we need to get ourselves in the best mental, physical, and emotional space that we possibly can. And so I know for me personally, like with my space, for example, I tend to be sensitive to sensory input. So colors, sounds, textures, smells, all the things, right? And we live in an open floor plan concept here by the beach in Florida, which I love, love, love. I've always wanted an open floor plan like this. But what that means for me is that when I look anywhere, I see everything, because there are not very many walls. And so I need for the sensory input to be very low for me in order for me to stay grounded, in order for me to stay centered and my best self. And so what that means to me is a pretty simple interior space. And that puts me in the headspace. And you know what, I even hate that term because it's so much more than just cognitive, but it's spiritual, it's energetic more than anything. Emotional more than anything, to be able to bring my best self to my parenting, my relationship with my husband, my work, that sort of thing. So when I say kind of be selfish, that's what I mean. Create a space that works for you. Right? Maybe you need a lot of color, a lot of texture, a lot of, kind of a more bohemian feel. Maybe that picks you up and wakes you up and like enlivens your spirit, right? And makes you feel like you are energized, right? And then you can bring that energized self to your child. Or maybe you need a space that's really romantic, that makes you feel kind of like wistful and longing and creative and loving and nurturing and passionate, right? And then you can bring that to your relationship with your child and even with to your husband. Or maybe like me, you need more of kind of a simple canvas to kind of calm your mind and calm your energy. So if you start with what you love first, and then you kind of grow from there, I think that that's a foundation. And then I would also say, to add on top of that a layer, to being careful to notice how your child, and if you have more than one children, each child that you have is going to be different, how they respond to your physical space as well. So for example, Ellie tends to be more like me. She's also more sensory sensitive, and even though she is 5 and a wild redhead, you might see her coming in and out here at some point, but she to create mess. I know about her that she is in her best emotional, energetic space when her space is at least neat and tidy, and when she has some downtime and she has some alone time. And so I work hard to help her learn that, and also to keep our home kind of neat and tidy. And I've been criticized for that sometimes. I've had other moms come in who have a higher threshold for chaos, to say like, well, Katie, like not everybody's home can be like yours. And I kind of have to do some education around. It's not a judgment. It's not like a better or worse. It's just what works for me versus you versus the next person, right? And figuring out what that is. My neighbor has 4 kids, and so all 4 are very different, but there's 2 that stand out when I think about this. One is one of the 2 middle children. He's the only boy in the family, and he has a really particularly sensitive sensibility in a lot of ways. And so what they've done is they've carved out, there's a closet, like a storage closet in their house, that they have created like this little nook. They blew up an air mattress, put some soft blankies in there, took out the industrial lighting, hung a chandelier in there, hung up some really beautiful little artwork in there, and he can go in there anytime he needs to and shut the door, and he can read books, or he can kind of watch his iPad for a little while, or do some schoolwork. He's homeschooled as well. And his mom keeps a really, really, really super neat and tidy house, probably one of the most neat and tidy houses I've ever seen. So for him, I think it's more of like an auditory sensory kind of thing, that he likes to be able to get away. Whereas the oldest child, she's a bit more wild and free-spirited. She's an artist, and she thrives in environments that are messier. And so she has a bit of a hard time even with how neat her family's home is. And so she does a lot of babysitting. She's 14, and so she loves babysitting. There's just one particular family in the area. The parents are artists, and they also have 4 kids. And so their house tends to be a little bit more just free and chaotic, if you will, right? And they thrive in that environment. So she loves to babysit for them because she thrives in that environment, And so the mom is acutely aware of the need to give her a space of her own that she can be more artistic or more messy or more chaotic for her, because that feeds her spirit.
Right. And I think that's kind of the key, is finding these separate places, because I know even, one of my kids, her messes are more contained. Everything's in bins, everything's in drawers, everything's put like kind of, And then my other child likes all of her belongings spread across the floor so she can, quote, see them at any given time. That drives me nuts. But it's her space, right? So we have to clean it once a week because I need to vacuum and, you know, keep up with mess. But yeah, giving your child a space, and maybe it's a small space. You know, I remember my kids had a play tent a long time ago before the dog peed in it. But they had a play tent, and you can create that. You know, they have these great little teepees online that are like, they come very plain canvas. So you can color them, paint them, whatever. So you can get that and design the inside of that for your child if, you know, space is an issue. Like, I think you're right, a small closet. I know Ansley likes to spend time in her closet, and she puts things in there and tapes things to the wall, and that's become her nook inside her room.
Yes.
But yes, I think you have to kind of, like, it's okay to create very small separate spaces, even if it's a little nook or a little corner.
Right.
To allow your child and yourself, you know, maybe it's your bedroom or maybe it's a corner of the house for you, right? To just give yourself that space for expression. And, you know, your whole house doesn't have to be this cohesive unit. Like, that idea of the model home where everything fits and flows works really great when it's just you. But, you know, in my home, I have 2 kids. I have my husband who comes with his stuff that he likes, like his sports memorabilia that's in my office, that will one day hopefully make its way to a finished basement. But right now it's in my office. And so we have to make some compromises, right? Everyone gets their space, and it doesn't all fit together, but that's part of what makes this a home for each of us.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And so one of the things I might encourage moms out there listening to this to think about, right, is just this concept, and this can be applied to them or to their kids, right? Or their husbands too, if they want to bring them into the mix, or partners, is thinking about things in terms of the 5 senses, right? So you guys heard me mention a minute ago that in my family, a couple of us at least are sensory sensitive. There is something called sensory processing disorder, but what I have learned is that sensory issues, if you will, or sensory sensitivity is a quite broad spectrum, right? And so we all have some degree of that, whether it's visual, tactile, auditory, you know, and so there is a severe end of the scale, but then there's just kind of like, you know, your kind of normal range. And so being aware of the impact of your sensory experiences on your physical, mental, and emotional state is so powerful. And in my opinion, it's one of the most important things that we can do on our paths towards like self-awareness and becoming our highest selves and growing, and learning how to self-soothe, and learning how to kind of regulate our own state. So if we think of things in terms of our senses, right, we have sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. So when you're thinking about a space, right, when you open your eyes and you look around that space, what do you see, right? And is what you see both pleasing to you, but also conducive to the emotional experience and the energetic experience that you want to have, right? There's a lot of pop psychology around the effect of colors on mood states and drives and that sort of thing. And, you know, if you're just kind of starting this journey, that might be a place to look to see what colors tend to be more soothing. If your child needs soothing, what colors tend to be more invigorating if your child needs to be invigorated or needs help focusing. Or you can just go intuitively, or you can ask your child, you know, because there's always room for individual differences. And then sound, right? A lot of times people forget about the impact of sound, but what are the noises that you're hearing? Do you want music on or do you want music off, right? If your child's studying, do they thrive in an environment where there's lots of noise around, or do they need noise canceling headphones? And everybody, again, it's going to be different, but just paying attention to that. Touch, right? So tactile, our tactile sense is so, so powerful. And I've found for me, that's one of the most important things for me. Like, you will never see me with a collar that's like much higher than this. And unless it's winter and I'm actually wearing like a cardigan, I never have on short sleeves. Like, that's not a thing. None of my clothes have like a waistband or anything tight at all, right? And so So just being comfortable, like in your body, right? Where other kids like things really snug fitting. Like my daughter, she loves long sleeves and long pants. And we live in Florida and it is 94 degrees and she will be sleeping in long sleeves and long pants. And she's just fine because it feels good to her, you know, to be kind of snugged up in that way. So just paying attention, right? If it's, say, a desk setting, right? Where if you have a child that comes home from school where they're getting all the sensory input at school and then you want them to sit at a desk and do homework, right? Like, what are they seeing when they sit at that desk? What are they hearing when they sit at the desk? What does the desk feel like to their body? What does the chair feel like to them? What does the surface area of the desk feel like on their arm, right? What does the pencil or pen feel like in their hand? What do the clothes they have on feel like? What does it feel like internally for them? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Do they have to go potty? Right? So all of that is tactile, right? So sight, sound, touch, taste, that's one we forget sometimes, but can also be powerful, right? I know for me, if I am going to start a new task or make a transition in my day, often I'll kind of mark that. So like, let's say if I'm working from home until like 2 and I've got to go in the office and see clients, I'll brush my teeth before I leave the house because it kind of like sends that signal, right? Because we brush our teeth right first thing in the morning, right? And that's like, okay, your day's starting. Well, sometimes a transition time, that can be another nice time to brush your teeth, right? Just like, let's freshen up real quick. And it helps with focus. Also, there's some really great natural toothpaste out there that have oils in them, like peppermint oil or orange oil, where it's going to also incite a feeling of focus as well. And then kind of touch, taste, and smell is the last one, right? So what is being smelled, and are those smells pleasurable or not? You can be very purposeful about the smells that you use in your house. Certain smells are going to be more soothing, say like lavender or vanilla or jasmine. Certain smells are going to be more invigorating, peppermint, citrus. And certain smells are going to be grounding and soothing. So all of your woodsies, cedarwood, vetiver, sandalwood, those things, fir. So you can be aware of what your family, what your child is smelling, and then kind of modify it to create the experience that you need. You might have peppermint oil on during homework time, but maybe lavender or vetiver at night before bedtime.
Yeah, and we do the oils at night, and we enjoy it. My kids, and it also builds an association, right? So you start putting on the lavender oil, and your kids are like, "That's bedtime," you know. It's just like part of the routine, part of the, like, I smell lavender, like it's time to relax or unwind. The challenge becomes when I think something is delicious, and somebody else says that, "What is that smell?" That becomes a little challenging. But yes, I agree. We overlook some of those things on what do we, especially when it comes to things that aren't visual. We pay a lot of attention to a visual experience of a space, but less to the emotions that it elicits, or the energy, or the smells, or what we hear. A loud place versus quiet. I know my kids like this place to be loud and lively. I would prefer quiet and soothing. And so we mix it up during the day. There's times when they can be loud and I have to find my center, and there's times when we're quieter and we kind of just, there's a lot of ebb and flow in that, just because a lot of people live here. Great, I love that. So how do kids come with stuff, like my kids come with stuff. And for someone like me, I don't like the stuff everywhere. I like clean countertops. If I lived here alone, this place would look very different than it does, for a lot of reasons. But so, everyone's got stuff. My husband has stuff. I have stuff. My kids. For someone like me, for example, that likes it to be more clean slate feeling, but everyone has their things. How do you manage that? What can I implement in my home? Not just rules and stuff, but how do I store stuff? Where do I put it? How do I create a system that works and keeps their stuff out of my space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are really good questions. So structurally, right, like a couple of things are my favorites. One is baskets. Ellie, we don't have a playroom in our house, and so all of her play equipment, all of her dolls, all of her art supplies, all of her gosh, now she's into all the, hair accessories and little Burt's Bees, little tiny makeups and earrings and jewelry. And, she changes her clothes 17,000 times a day. So everything is in baskets. Even in her closet, things are organized in baskets in her closet. So that's one great thing, I think, is just using baskets. You can have a basket, you can have like a mobile basket, right? So where like if you are downstairs, say, or in your kitchen and you find something that doesn't belong there, right? It doesn't belong on your cabinet, on your countertop, right? It goes in the basket. And then next time you take a trip upstairs, the basket goes with you and you can return that thing to its space, or the thing can live in the basket and the kids can check the basket before you go night-night, or check the basket, it's room cleaning day, right? I have to vacuum, see what of yours has found its way into the basket, right? Or they're looking for the thing that they left on the kitchen counter, we'll look at mommy put in the basket, right? So using baskets is a great way.
Sorry, the dog. Oh no, come here.
Nice. What we do?
Guard dog.
Yeah, she's so first. I love her.
She's not. Kona, there's someone probably walking their dog by. Kona, I'm sorry, this is ruining the flow.
Okay.
But yes, I love the idea of baskets. And as a parent, that's an easy cleanup. I can just put things in a basket instead of sorting in drawers and stacking and all those things. Yeah.
Yes. The other thing I like a lot is I am a big fan of furniture with storage. Yeah. So, like, you guys did a really good job when you bought your new coffee table, right? Because you have storage underneath there, I think, if I remember.
But we had a great coffee table that opened up and had storage inside. It was fantastic.
Yeah. So I have a credenza in my living room that has drawers, and it's kind of a vintage shabby chic, so it has a nice kind of design feel to it for me. But it's full of games. So all the, because I don't want to see like what Hasbro and Milton Bradley, like that's not to me. So that stuff is packed away. I want to, I have a goal to get another one. I want to get a low chest of drawers to put more stuff in down here in the living room. Particularly, I'm finding in my home, I have a limited amount of space to store holiday decorations. In Florida, at least in this house, we don't have an attic or a basement. And so holiday decorations are like jammed into kitchen cabinets, and it's not an effective way to store things. So buying beautiful pieces of furniture, whatever your furniture style is, right? So mine tends to be more like eclectic, coastal, shabby chic. And so I like vintage pieces that are unique and have a lot of flair to them and maybe have been chalk painted or something similar. Whereas, if you have a more contemporary style, that works too. But finding a piece rather with drawers in it where you can put things that are going to live there more permanently, right? Like family board games, like art supplies, or the holiday decorations that I mentioned, right? Because those are things that are not pretty either and can look cluttery. And even for me, even if I have them in the cabinet, if I open that cabinet, that creates a negative sensory experience for me because there's stuff everywhere, and I don't like stuff everywhere, even in a cabinet, right? Where you can't see it if you walk into my home, but I know it's there, and it bothers me every time I open that daggone cabinet.
Right.
So, and that's kind of another idea just to be thinking about is constantly being aware, right? So you can get your house to a place where you feel like it's functional for you, and then noticing where are those spaces where you still want to avoid that, or you still don't feel good when you go to that space or you look at that thing, and then trying to problem solve, what can I do with that space, or what can I do to create a different space that works better for me and for this need?
Right. So, Katie, tell me a little bit about how you work, how people can get in touch with you, how you, work remotely. Like, how would it work if I needed some help in my house? And maybe it's just one room, maybe it's, an overhaul. What's the best way to reach you, and how can people connect with you and get started?
Thanks, girl. Yeah, so pretty simple. So, I am fine with sharing kind of put that in the comments afterward. I do have a Facebook page, Bloom Intuitive Interior Redesign. And for right now, that's all. Kind of just being pretty low key about this. I do go into homes locally. I can do like some Skype sessions or FaceTime sessions with folks who are in different places of the world, or you can just send me pictures. And it can be as simple as like texting me pictures. In this day and age of technology, it really doesn't have to be that hard.
Right.
And if there's a specific challenge that you have, we can brainstorm that together. Or if you're like, look at this space, it's driving me crazy, just snap me a picture real quick, send it to me, and we can work something out as far as how I'm going to be able to help you. Often, like I said, what I'll do is I'll come into a space and help declutter, help rearrange a little bit. And sometimes you'd be surprised, just pushing furniture around a little bit can create a huge shift mentally and emotionally in a space. And so even just moving things, kind of a few inches here to there, or changing the direction things are facing, or adding something or removing something often, right, is part of the work, kind of what they call editing. And so we can do that pretty simply. Or if there is, sometimes my clients will send me a picture of a new piece they've gotten in their existing space and say, well, how can I work this new piece in? Whether it's a different type of a style or a new color for them. And then we can talk about that as well, or a new need for an old space, say like as your kid is growing, right? Like in the example I gave of my neighbor with her 14-year-old, like, okay, we were just looking at their bedroom the other day. The 14-year-old shares a room with an 11-year-old. And so, we're looking at different furniture options. Right now they're sharing a bed even. They've got, I think, a queen size bed or something they share. And so we're actively looking on the hunt for like day beds, and we're going to divide their room so they can each have their own side of the room and create more of like a lounge feel for them in the room, so they can feel like they can still party and hang if they're getting along well, or if they want to have their friends over, but if they're not getting along well, they can kind of pull that curtain and have their own space.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, that's just some examples of the types of things that we can do. And it's pretty, I'm pretty flexible with things. I'm not a real rigid or regimented person. In fact, right now, kind of as I'm getting the ball rolling with this, I kind of have like a name your own price kind of thing. I mean, I just really want to get in homes and help people, whether it's virtually or in person. And so if you've got a $20 budget or a $2,000 budget, I can work with you around that and provide what I can at price point.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
I love chatting with you.
I know. Well, I will put a link to your Facebook page from this video, so people can access it and see more about what you're posting and what you're doing from you. But I appreciate your time and helping all these parents get spaces that bring them joy and pleasure and less anxiety.
Yes, you're so welcome. And yes, and you have your settings on your page are such that I can share this on my page too, right?
Correct. Yes, they are. Or I can send it to you. Yeah. But thank you so much.